All right, government students, welcome to Unit 3, where we talk about influencing government. Our guiding question for this entire unit is how do we, the people, referring to obviously the citizens of the United States, how do we influence governments? Okay, and today we start off with what I like to refer to as red versus blue, where we talk about the American political parties. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but we'll get into why we have a two-party system and what do these political parties actually do. Well, what are political parties? Political parties are groups of people who share political ideas and try to control government by winning elections and holding public offices. Okay? This is an idea that at least some of our founding fathers, especially George Washington, had wanted to try to avoid having these things, as he referred to as the spirit of party, would be something that he feared could destroy America. But it's kind of hard to imagine American government today without political parties. Okay? They are not mentioned anywhere in the United States Constitution or in any of the amendments, but they are a really integral part, and it's hard to think of it outside of that. Okay? And really, one of the things that people don't realize is that political parties are not stagnant. Okay? They do not mean the same thing. Republicans 150 years ago, around the time of the Civil War, looked radically different than Republicans do today. The same thing with Democrats. Okay? As issues change, as society progresses, the values and the things that each of these political parties are going to stand for are going to change. Okay? There are two major political parties in the United States today. I'm sure you've heard of them, Republicans and Democrats. However, there's over 40 other minor parties. Okay? Why don't you ever hear about these other parties, especially when there's so many people who are upset with both of the Republicans and Democrats and would view maybe going a different direction? Well, that's because for the most part they don't win elections. Okay? There are only 6 parties at any level, that includes federal, state, and local levels, that hold any type of public office. 6. Okay? And a lot of that is because the United States has a two-party system. Okay? A two-party system is where there are 2 major political parties, and they are the parties that dominate governments. Okay? Not all democracies are this way. This is not something that is like it has to be this way in democracies. If you look at the United Kingdom, they have a parliamentary setup. They hold 7 different political parties that hold office. Germany has 5 different ones. India, which again, very, very large population compared to the United States, but India has over 51 different political parties that are active within its government. But we have 2, right? We have 2. Why is that? Well, the unsatisfying answer is we have 2 political parties. We have a two-party system because we've always had a two-party system. It goes all the way back to the founding of our country, a feud between 2 of Washington's cabinet members. First one up here on the top, guy by the name of Alexander Hamilton. You probably heard of him before. I know you've heard of the other one, Thomas Jefferson. Okay? Hamilton was Washington's Treasury Secretary, and Jefferson was Washington's Secretary of State. And it really kind of starts off of this feud between these 2 particular individuals who end up having very, very different ideas of what direction our country should go. Okay? Hamilton favored a much more powerful national government, where Jefferson favored the states holding the majority of the power. Okay? So what's ended up happening is after Washington steps down, okay, after he decides I'm not going to run for a 3rd term, the groups of people who have similar ideas start to rally together, and they form the very first 2 political parties. You have on top kind of the original symbol for Federalists. Those would be individuals who supported Hamilton. And then on the bottom, you have the symbol over here on the right. You have the symbol for Democratic Republicans. Now, don't confuse these with Democrats or Republicans. This is a totally different group. Okay? Again, they're calling themselves Democratic Republicans because they are in favor of democracy, right, Democrat, and a favor of a republic, Republicans. So they call themselves Democratic Republicans. Washington, during most of his presidency, ended up siding with Hamilton and preferring a little more broad view of power. A lot of that, I think, had to do with their relationship during the Revolutionary War and working together and seeing some of the need for a stronger executive to be able to command the army, to be able to enforce laws and such. And as a result of that, Jefferson actually resigns as Secretary of State in a pretty bold move there, and eventually runs for president. But he doesn't get elected, right? He doesn't get elected. Instead, we get John Adams for a term. So, what do political parties actually do, right? Because sometimes we look at it and say, well, they do nothing but argue. Well, political parties actually do a lot of things. There's 4 things in particular. Number 1, they nominate candidates for office. Okay, this is the primary function of political parties. This is what they do: is they are constantly looking for qualified individuals, or individuals not necessarily qualified. I'd say they're looking for individuals who can win, right? Who are popular enough and can rally enough support to hold offices. And it's not just like the president and in Congress. We're talking at every level, going all the way down to the very, very local levels here. Okay? So they are nominating candidates for office. They're trying to get people out there who would be able to be a part of their particular political party. After that, they go and they mobilize and inform supporters. Okay? They try to get people to actively participate in government through voting. Okay, by being engaged with their particular party and getting out and talking to people. You might have, during the 2020 election, I think there were 3 different instances in which I had somebody from the Republican Party show up at my doorstep looking to kind of talk to me and trying to promote Donald Trump as the presidential candidate, right? And that's one of the things that they do is they go out and sometimes it's door to door, sometimes it's all the signs that you see when they show up around election time, okay? But they are trying to help these candidates win those positions, right? They're campaigning for those candidates. Additionally, they're also going to serve the people in that they generate ideas for policies. Okay? You see this a lot as people start to, within a particular political party, tend to rally together around similar ideas, right? It's those ideas that bring these people together to form this political party. Well, those ideas are going to be things that they later try to get into different policies. And as we get further on in class, we'll look at what do Republicans tend to stand for, what do Democrats tend to stand for right now in terms of their policies. Okay? But additionally, this is another really important one: is they act as a watchdog, right? If you have a dog, whether it's a big dog or a little dog, okay, especially the little dogs, I feel like if somebody comes to your home and they don't know them, they might bark. They might alert you that there's something going on here, right? And sometimes, the joke is that maybe the little dog's just barking at a piece of trash or the mailman or something like that, or the Amazon Prime driver dropping off a package. But he's alerting you, hey, there's something an issue here. Political parties do that, especially when they're the party out of power. Now, right now, Democrats control Congress, they control the presidency, so Republicans would be the watchdog. Previously, under the Trump administration, it was Democrats who acted as a watchdog. Okay? And what they're watching over is the public's business. Okay? They are looking at everything that the party in power is doing, and they are being hypercritical. All right? They are pointing out every little detail to show this is why this party should not be in power and why you should instead vote for us and put us back in power. And that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to show the party in power why they should be thrown out. So some other important terms to know here when we talk about those different ideas, right? If you look at serving the people, generating ideas for policies here, this is going to be a lot of times done as on what we know as the party platform. Okay? This is a formal set of principles a lot of times, as well as different policy goals that a political party supports. And candidates can then kind of rally around it, and you can see, okay, if voters can look at and say, okay, if you're a Republican, that means you're probably for these things. If you're a Democrat, you're probably for these things. So the party platform is really, really helpful in kind of getting the campaigning for candidates as well as getting support for those candidates. Okay? A couple other terms here to kind of understand, and we can finally define what these things are liberalism and conservatism. Okay? Liberalism is a political moral philosophy that's based on liberty and equal rights. Okay? Those are the 2 key ideas when it comes to liberalism: liberty and equal rights. And that tends to be the major focus, is they are looking for different ways in which they can help secure freedoms and in ways that they can make society more equal. Okay, where conservatives and conservatism is a political and social philosophy that promotes traditional social institution in the context of that particular culture and civilization. So if you were to go like way back in history, and you were to look at an empire, right? An emperor trying to keep things the way that they have been would be considered to view as conservative. Uh, in today's context here in the United States, conservatives just kind of tend to keeping the traditional American values, right? Trying to work towards and promote ideas that are traditional, whether that's dealing with a family, whether that's dealing with religion and culture, and trying to promote those values over some of the changes that are happening in society. Okay? So liberals tend to want to try and pursue change in society and to try and make it more free and trying to make it more equal. In that sense, again, liberty and equality are right there, where conservatives want to try and keep society as it is. They don't want to try and have a ton of change. And they want to try and maintain the status quo. That's the big idea of conservatives. And again, these are very, very general. This does not always directly apply to political parties, but this is just kind of more of a general understanding of these two different ideas. So that is everything for today for political parties. We'll got lots more to cover when it comes to class, so I hope you're ready to dive into not only what Republicans and Democrats are, but we'll also take a good look at a lot of the minor parties and understand why these are important in the American political context, even though they don't really ever win. So, all right, I'll see you in class.